Library. I'm Miranda, the youth librarian, and today I'm going to be showing you something that will maybe help you get a little bit more creative in your schooling. So there are a lot of videos on YouTube right now that show you how to cover your school books. And I'm going to talk about that a little bit, and then I'm going to show you a way that you can cover not only your school books for a little bit of extra creativity while you're doing the whole education thing, but also your notebooks. So looking at our supplies, what you'll need is a brown paper bag. It does not have to have handles on it. That's just what I have available, but like any grocery bag will work. And it doesn't have to be a brown paper bag. It can be, you could use newsprint, although that gets a little messy with your fingers. You could use like Christmas wrapping paper or birthday wrapping paper or any kind of wrapping paper really instead. So there's lots of different options, but just some sort of paper. Then you're going to need a pencil. I don't know if we're going to use the duct tape or not, but it never hurts to have duct tape. Then some regular tape. Now this is what I call a bone. But it's kind of, it's good for scoring things, which is basically like creating a line in paper without cutting through the paper to make folding things easier. And you'll get to see how I use this in a little bit, but it's really useful. But if you don't have one of these, anything that has kind of like a blunt, like I've got a mechanical pencil here that doesn't have the pencil tip, anything that's got kind of a blunt edge, but comes to a point of some sort, is useful for scoring and can be used to score things. Let's see, scissors, some cloth, fabric, any kind, preferably something that you like the looks of course. I'm going to be using this one here. A notebook of some kind. I may have already said that. You'll need a yardstick. And again, you don't have to have a yardstick, but it definitely makes some of your measurements easier. And then you might want some colored paper. I'm actually not sure if I'm going to be using this or not, but I thought I'd have it here just in case. All right, so moving on to the one that I've already done. What you'll see here is a project that you can pretty much find all over YouTube, to be perfectly honest. I have covered my calendar, but I'm going to kind of take it apart to kind of show you what I did. And then we're going to do something slightly different with our stuff over here. Okay, so as you can see, it's really super easy to get your book out of your cover, which is really nice if it's a school book. Oh, look, this one's falling apart already. I used double stick tape because I didn't want to mess with glue, and that's not a bad thing necessarily, especially if you're covering your school books, because you don't want anything on your school books that's going to cause damage to the book when you remove the cover, because it belongs to the school and not to you. But for this project, you just need your piece of paper. And as you can see, I just kind of measured my book and then gave it some extra, and I tried to bring it in as close as I could to the edge on both sides. And then, as you can see, once I had the paper measured, I cut the fabric, and you can see I folded my fabric over a little bit so that I didn't have an edge that was going to be doing that at the top. You don't want that. But then you take your fabric and you lay it down first, and then you slide your paper book cover down into the fabric, into the fold. And then once you've got that, you just kind of lay your book down. And then as you can see, the paper is also folded over. We've got about 2.5 inches here and maybe close to 4 inches here. And then once you've got that, you can just kind of slide that right in there. And I will admit this is easier to do with a floppy cover than it is with a hard cover. But it is still doable with a hard cover. Then we're going to do this side. And this one always gets stuck because my bag is a little torn on one side. But you just kind of maneuver it in there. And then not only do you have a really cool cover to protect whatever it is you're trying to protect, but you've got a little pocket that you can store pens and pencils. I think the pencil will stay in there pretty well. Yeah, because we made it deep enough. You can store notes or stickers or anything else that you want. You've got not just the pocket on the front, but also the pocket on the back, which is really nice. I did put in some extra double stick tape, like right along the spine, to kind of hold the pocket in place a little bit better. Again, I'm not too happy with how the double stick tape turned out. So I would actually recommend a little bit of glue. But that's entirely up to you and how you want to do it. So now I'm gonna take a slight little break here, and then we're gonna show you a slightly different way to do the same kind of project, only to make it a little bit more permanent. So this would be a cover that you would not want to put on school books, but a cover that you could put on a notebook or a calendar or a journal or anything along those lines. All right, so we're going to cut for just a minute and then we'll be right back. Okay, so we're back. I pulled out the supplies that we're going to need first. And what we're going to do is deconstruct our paper bag. That's the first thing that has to happen. So sometimes it kind of depends on how well your bag has been glued together. Most of the time you can just peel it apart and it's okay if it tears. As you can see, I'm not freaking out over the tears that are going on here. It's all good. Oops. Okay. Then there's usually a seam on the bag itself. There it is. So the bag always has a seam where it's been glued together. And we're going to go ahead and split that apart. Okay. And we're going to get rid of our handles. And actually, probably the easiest thing to do is cut them off. But if you really want like the kind of bumpies there gone completely, then you can tear it off. It just damages the bag a little bit more. Which again is not a super huge deal because that part of the bag is going to be gone. Okay. So we have our piece of paper that's going to be the main cover of our item. So now we need to do some measuring. Fortunately, this is pretty easy to do because you just have to kind of lay it down and eyeball it and then use a pencil to make some marks so you know where you're going. So I'm going to kind of put it in the middle so that we're not getting all these kind of tears and things down here either. And then what you want to do is kind of lay it. And unlike the one that I was showing you earlier, you don't need as much extra paper because you're not bringing it all the way into here. So I'm just going to do about 1.5 inches. That might be 2 inches, but that's okay. About 1.5 inches. Then you just take it and flip it. And then you want about 1.5 inches on the other side. So we're going to go ahead and get out our... And I would say right about there. We're going to go ahead and make a mark. And cut that down. Okay. Then... top and bottom. We obviously don't need this much space for either one. So again, you're going to kind of center it. And then give yourself, again, about 1.5 inches. There. And then I don't want this part, so I'm going to make it a little bit shorter. It's probably closer to 1 inch. Okay. we're good. So, let me sit back down. All right, so starting on this side, we're going to start taping. But let's see. I think what I'm going to do is just put down a little bit of tape just to hold it in place while I'm making my other cuts. So you don't need a lot of tape for this part here, just enough to hold your cover down to the piece of paper. Because what I want is I want to line up about like that. And then I'm going to cut off our edges like so. Do it on the other side too. And it's important for this part here to give yourself, like, don't cut it right to here because you're going to have to deal with that spiral. So you want to give yourself enough space there. All right. Now, and again, keep in mind, this one is for something that is much more permanent. This is not something that you want to be doing to a book from your school that does not belong to you. Because getting the cover off afterwards could damage the book. And your school might not be too happy about that. Okay, so we have one side taped down. I'm going to go ahead and do the other side, and we're going to speed it up. Okay.
Ooh, too tight?
Yeah, it looks like I made it a little too tight. I've never done this with a spiral before, so it looks like I would just be really careful when you're doing yours with your spiral. Because now that it's taped down really good, I may not be able to adjust that. Actually, you know what? Let's go ahead and try. Let's see if I can. Okay, so we're back, and I think I figured out the issue. So I definitely made it too tight. So what I had to do, I didn't want to cut more paper for our project. So what I had to do is I had to go back. And then, so what you have to do for your second side is basically make sure that it's laying completely down. And then really you almost need 2 sets of hands for this part. But while it's still laying completely down and while this is as flush to your edge as possible, you fold in your edges from there. And then very quickly just put one little piece of tape down just so that it won't move and shift. And then do that all the way around your edges, and then you can open it up and then finish taping your edges. And as you can kind of see, when you open it, there is a gap at your spine. That's okay. And then I left these little things on only so I can show you how I get rid of them, which is real easy. You just kind of take your scissors, and my scissors are not super sharp, so they're not going to cut around the spine the way that I want them to, but we'll just go like that, and then we can trim it up. Oh, sorry, y'all. I forget sometimes that I'm doing this for y'all and not for me. Okay. And then the same thing here. We'll just do like that. And then once it's done, we can trim up a little bit. Okay. And something else that you could do, to kind of fortify your spine if you want to, is do like a strip of duct tape. Plus it also kind of looks cool. In fact, I think I'm going to do that. Let's do some duct tape. Measure it. And you can see my little corners because I cut it when it was still too tight. My little corners are showing, but they won't show if you do it right the first time before you make those cuts. Okay, so that's probably about right.
You could cover them up with duct tape.
You can cover them up with duct tape. You could. In fact, since we're accenting the rest already, that would be a good additional accent. Actually, you know what? I tore that, but it might be better if it had... These are really not great scissors. And I say not great, I just mean they're not very sharp. So they don't cut very well.
They might have to get another pair.
That's okay. We're almost there. It's like they're sharp right in here, and then none of the rest of it is sharp. Okay. All right, so you just lay down for some accent. And we are going to do another pocket like I did on the first one, so we really don't need to worry about the bottom so much as we do about the top. And there they go. Okay. Just like that. For a little bit of extra reinforcement. Then, yes, just like my videographer said, you can use some extra duct tape. Even if you didn't mess up your corners like I did, you can still use duct tape to decorate your corners. All you have to do, let me turn this towards y'all. All you have to do is kind of line up your duct tape right with the corner. And if I'd made this a little bit longer, it would have gone all the way to the edge, but that's okay. All right. And I apologize for my puppy. She is excited because we have people in the backyard. Okay.
Yeah.
Let's try on the... Oh, that's right. We don't have to do the other corner because it's going to get covered up. Okay, but we can do this corner. Let's make this one a little longer. Okay, right there at the corner. You don't have to tell her to shush. She's not going to shush. Okay. And yeah, you can see because I made it longer, we get a nice even edge right there. Okay. So now, let's take another quick break, and then I'm going to show you how to do the fabric on the bottom so you get your pocket. Okay, so we're back. And I realized that before we do the fabric pocket, then I wanted to talk about what the paper was for. So obviously, on the inside of your book, it's kind of ugly. But with a piece of paper, you can kind of line it up. And this one, you definitely need some extra measuring and measurements. But I'm not going to do too much of that. So you don't want it right to the edge. But I've drawn my lines. And so now I can say, well, I don't need right to the edge, but I can kind of sketch. And if you want it like super nice and neat, definitely use a ruler. But I'm not too concerned about that right now. So, and obviously if I want to do both sides of my journal, I'm going to need another piece of paper. Or maybe not. I'll have to test and see. That might be enough. No, I think it's too skinny. That's okay. All right. I'm just showing you how you can do it if you want to. We're not going to completely finish this journal out. Okay. And this can be any kind of paper too. It can be construction paper. It can be just scrapbooking paper like what I'm using here. It can be wrapping paper, any kind of paper. And then to make it nice and neat, you'll want to tape all the way. Miss Rosie, she is just so excited. And I got a little bit of extra tape there, but that's okay. We can just trim it off. Okay. Something else really cool about doing this, which you may or may not have noticed as I've been taping, it's really difficult to tape this part, but it does create like a super secret pocket where you can keep things that you maybe want to keep hidden, which is kind of fun and cool. Love notes. Love notes. They don't have to be love notes. They can be secrets to your best friend, or it could be super special notes to reminders or diary entries, whatever you want. Like it's a secret pocket right there. Okay, so you can do that on both sides to create a little bit of extra decoration on your notebook. Now we are going to do our fabric. And I'm going to stand up for this part. Let's move some of this other stuff out of the way. This is obviously way more fabric than I need, but that's okay. We'll just cut it down. Okay, as with the other parts of this project, you can like do all your measurements in advance and pre-prep and get it all nice and neat with your ruler, but you don't necessarily have to. So all you really need is kind of like what we did before with the paper bag, is you just need a little bit down at the bottom that you're going to fold over. And then, dun, dun, dun. And a little bit here, we're going to go ahead and cut. And the important thing to remember here, I mean, you can cut extra, but we don't need it to go all the way to the top because we're making a pocket. I'm going to probably cut to like right about here because I definitely want room to fold over. So just like on the book that I showed you earlier, it doesn't have a rough edge. And you know what? Let me grab some other scissors. These are really bad scissors for cutting cloth. There we go. I think this will be better. Oh yeah, much better. Not tons better, but better. Okay, so right about there I think is where I said. And then for this part, just so I can make sure that my line is a little bit more even, I'm going to kind of measure it up. And then kind of drag my pencil across. Oops. All right. If I'd been thinking about it, I actually would have done that on the back side, but it's not a big deal. The pencil line is barely noticeable, and you can always cut right below it. Oh, and plus that part's going to be folded over anyway, so it's not going to matter. Okay, so this is the only piece we need. I'm going to get the rest of this fabric out of the way. Okay, we're going to lay it down this way. Go ahead and fold this part over, depending on how big you want your pocket to be. And I think, you know, I used the double-sided tape before, and The bones are also really good for creasing. I think I'm just going to, since I have duct tape, I'm just going to duct tape it. That's pretty good. This part can be messy because this part isn't going to get seen. And you could use this tape instead of duct tape, but what I found is this kind of tape doesn't stick to fabric very well. Okay, so right about there, because again, we're going to need some extra to fold over. And then if you want, in fact, right here is where I would put some double stick tape, if you wanted to. It does make your pocket a little bit smaller, but it kind of adds a little bit of extra, I guess, resilience to your pocket. But for this one, I will not use double stick tape. We're just going to test it and see what happens. Okay. So, this is one of those cases. Well, when we get to the other side, we'll have to be careful that we don't make it too tight, just like before. But I'm going to...
Pocket should have come before the liner.
Oh, you're right. Yeah, the pocket should have come before the liner. It would have made your liner a little bit lumpy. But yes, because now I've messed up my pretty inside liner. But that's something that y'all will know for when you make yours. So I'm going to fold that down, get myself some tape. Okay. And kind of like what I was talking about before, you just need to do a little bit of tape for the first part. And then I'm going to go ahead and make my cut like I did with the paper to make sure that it's going to fit by the spiral. This is a little bit harder with the fabric. All right. Oh, and I forgot to cut along the edge too, but you know what? I think I can still do that. And the only reason you do that is so you don't wind up with so much extra overlapping fabric. Okay. All right, let's get 2 more pieces, maybe just 1 piece of tape. And I will probably go back with duct tape on that, but for now, I think this tape will do us fine. Especially since you're not taping to cloth on cloth. You're taping to the piece of paper, and so it's going to stick a little bit better. All right. So there's our one side. Ta-da. And typically speaking, I would not use this shade of duct tape with this fabric, but this is the duct tape that I have. So this is the duct tape that we're using. All right, so let me kind of turn this towards y'all a little bit so that I can kind of try to help y'all see. So again, we don't want it to be too tight. So what we've got to do is get our fabric folded in. Oh, you know what? Let me trim off that corner before I forget. Okay, not perfect, but it'll be okay. All right. So you want to be able to close your book properly and open your book properly. So what you have to do, go ahead and have your tape ready. So I'm going to go ahead and get off a few pieces here. And then you're going to fold in. And then you just want to get that tape down somewhere. You can always go back and make adjustments later. Oh, I forgot to make my other cut. As you can see, this is a pretty involved project, and there are lots of little things that you can forget to do. Fortunately, the way that this project works is that usually the things that you might forget to do are things that when you get to them, you're still able to do them without messing up your project, which is always nice. All right. Okay, so we've got it closed. I've got my piece of tape. I'm going to open it up, kind of pull it in there. All right. And when we open it up completely, it's still nice and loose. You can do your extra taping. Again, I would normally do duct tape for the fabric. Because duct tape sticks to just about anything. And it'll make your pocket sturdier. Alright, then let's cut off our little bit of fabric here. This might be a little bit more difficult to do than with the paper earlier, but again, if you just kind of cut off the extra, and then very slowly kind of trim your way around. All right, then something else. Again, since we're trimming, and since this is fabric, it is going to get a little bit rough. What you can do is take some clear nail polish and kind of just dab it along the edge there, and that'll keep it from fraying. All right, so it's a little bit crooked. That's okay. Handmade is never absolutely 100% perfect, but there you go. We have our pocket. We can put our pencils in. We can put our pieces of paper in, all the way down in, or kind of sticking out of the top. You can also decorate. You can write here, and you can add stickers. You can write my notes, or whatever it is that your journal happens to be for. You can also, there are some YouTube videos that show pockets being made with paper, but you know, when I was in school, I thought about all the stuff that I had to cram into my backpack. And all of the times that I wound up damaging notebooks and covers of paperback books. And I thought, you know, if this pocket was paper, it probably would not last you very long. So it seemed to me that having a fabric pocket would be much more durable for carrying around in your backpack. But there you have it. You've got your blank notebook all decorated and good to go. And you can decorate this just about any way you want to and get super creative with it. And then people will see you at school with it and they'll be like, oh, this is so awesome. Where did you find this? And you can be like, oh, I made it. So thank you so much for tuning in with me today. I know this video was a little bit longer than our typical one, so thank you for sticking with me. I hope you had fun. If you have any questions about this project or anything, because I know this was a little bit more involved than normal, anything that wasn't clear, please feel free to message. I know you can't message on the YouTube video, but please message on the Facebook page, and I'll be happy to answer any questions. So thank you so much for tuning in. I hope you have a good day.